Okay, you're ready to.
Thank you, Celeste. Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order, 6:35. At this time, we would receive any public comment, if there's any public comment. Okay. Could someone review our operating norms?
And as a board, we will focus on student outcomes, be open-minded, respect each other, value different viewpoints, be responsive and responsible to our community, make decisions based on data and facts, listen to each other, be reflective, and run meetings that respect time, have concise agendas, are transparent, and follow Robert's rules.
Thank you, Corey. Moving on to the consent agenda, if I could get a motion to approve that.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Diane. Can I get a second?
A second.
Thank you, Corey. I'll go through for voting. Corey?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Diane?
Oh.
Yes, and I am a yes as well. Okay. Moving along, Randy?
So we will start with reviewing the budget for FY22. So I will pass this over to Sue and she can walk through it with us and we can talk about it and see if we're ready to take a vote.
Okay, so the budget you're looking at has a 3.4% decrease. There's a couple of reasons for the decline from the last draft that you saw. Two main reasons is the reduction of staff and the final BRSU assessments, which were voted on and approved last week, which include a sizable return of surplus. So staffing, you already know that we reduced from what was budgeted this year, we reduced a teacher and a paraeducator. Both of those were through attrition. And in next year's budget, we have a reduction of a teacher and 2 paraeducators. And the teacher position is a resignation that we're not going to be filling. And the 2 paraeducator reduction is due to changes in student services. So that's the main difference budget to budget. You can see that your K-8 instruction support line on packet page 13 is going down by 10%. So that's the main reason for that decrease. Right above that in early education, we also have a decrease of 22%. It's a big percentage, but a smaller number. And it's just due to a change in assignment for speech services. So there's no longer a FTE speech position in the pre-K program. Those services are being reassigned where they're needed in other schools or other districts. And that's an assessment from the BRSU. So you'll see the BRSU assessment go down in pre-K because of that position being shifted. And then of course, the other piece is the couple of line items that were added on packet page 13, line 8 and line 14. And those are the return of surpluses in the general budget and the special education budget. So we talked about at the beginning, wanting to be a little more transparent with the return of the surplus, not have it buried within the surplus number, but sort of spell it out. Mostly because that number fluctuates so much, right? No more so this year, especially because we have such a big return going on. It's hard to see if you combine those numbers together, it's hard to see from year to year, why is that assessment changing so much? And there's so much that goes into that assessment, right? It's not just about the expenditures that are in the BRSU budget. It's also about the changes that are happening with enrollment between the districts, because your share of those, the cost of those services may be changing your percentage share based on whether your kids are going up or down as a percentage of the whole SU, right? Because it's all the Taconic and Green and all the Win Hall students as well in some of that assessment. And then of course the return of surplus. So if we break it out, it makes it a little cleaner to be able to show the expenses going up or down and explaining that. And then also right below that, being able to show the return of surplus and whether that's going up and down from year to year. So that's a new sort of presentation on that first page. We did decide to return a lot of surplus at the BRSU, similar to what we'll get to next, returning some of your anticipated surplus and reducing ed spending for next year, because we're seeing the tax rate go up by 3 cents or more in every district, just because the property yield recommendation is on the downward trend. So right now, there's a recommended decrease in the property yield, which automatically increases your tax rate by about 3 cents. So in order to compensate for that, we're returning surplus that we have for the same reason that all of the districts are seeing surpluses because of COVID and reduced operations, reduced costs because of reduced operations. And we would anticipate that everything to be going back to normal next year and not see these sizable surpluses. So it makes sense to be returning it now for both of those reasons. So let's see, that's basically the budget side of it. The next piece I would get to would be tax rate, but I don't want to jump there unless you guys are ready. Do you have any questions on the general budget itself?
I mean, I assume, maybe I'm confused on this. We had one teacher that left last year that we didn't fill, and then this year we had another one coming up, will be retiring, that we're not filling, and now we have an additional resignation? No.
No. So the retiring teacher, that resignation, we're not going to replace that position. So it's a reduction of one, right, for next year. But we also had a reduction of one this year. So budget to budget, that's 2 teachers.
Right.
Can I ask a question? Just because I'm curious on extracurricular. Like that's up 18.4. What's causing that?
Let me get there. So that's the after school program, Diane, and we have a change of staffing. We don't have that position filled yet, but when I budget for it, I'm always budgeting for benefits. The last person that was in that position didn't take benefits, so you're automatically going to see an increase. Now that may not actually happen, depends on who we get to fill the position.
Okay, so, and is this right here when I'm looking for, I'm sorry, is this like for this next school year? Is that how that works? So
yeah, so I have, you can see if you look at the FY21 anticipated column, I am still anticipating that there'll be a small portion of the year that we're going to fill a position and hopefully be able to run the after school program and hopefully fill the position and hopefully, right? We don't know if that's actually going to take place, but we anticipate some costs on the chance that it is going to happen. So there is a little bit of a cost there, but of course there was no benefits budgeted in FY21, and that percentage column that you're looking at is a comparison budget to budget.
okay.
So those benefits really are what's throwing that number up so much.
Okay, so it's the benefits part of that. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying.
Sure. All right, so is everybody ready to move on to packet page 12? So that's our tax rate projection. And so that first line item, voted budget and warrant articles, that's that drop in 3.4% that we just talked about. We are seeing a decline in local revenues as well. Most of that is, I believe, special education, with probably a little bit of transportation thrown in. So transportation is a little bit of transportation as well. Transportation reimbursement is based on actuals from 2 years ago. So the FY22 transportation reimbursement is based on the FY20 actuals. Of course, you know, Our FY20 actuals and transportation were down, right? Because we didn't have as much transportation because of school dismissal. So that's automatically going to impact our reimbursement in FY22. We're going to see a little bit of that same thing in FY23 because this year's transportation, we've got some credits going on from the bus contract, right? So it's going to be down a little from what we budgeted for. And then we should be back up to a normal cycle the following year, assuming we're back up and running normally next year. So special education reimbursement is down a little as well. Again, we talked about the fact that we are dropping 2 paraeducators from the budget. Student services are changing. We will have less special education services to bill back to the state, meaning less special education reimbursement. So that's that decline in local revenues of 5.4% is mostly those 2 factors make most of that up. So education spending is going down. That's a really good thing. We want our education spending number to go down, and it's going down for the reason that your expenditures are going down so much. They compensate for that loss of local revenue because your expenditures are going down enough. Our equalized pupil number is not final yet. The state is still working on the data. So I don't even know if we'll have final equalized pupils before we go to print. I hope we do. This is my best estimate at the time at this time. That brings us with an education spending per equalized pupil of 16,298, which is a drop of 2.2%. And that's the stuff that goes on the warning. So that's really good. You're able to show your taxpayers that the things that you have control over, you're dropping, right? You're decreasing that ed spending per pupil. After that, the state's taking over and we're dividing by their recommended yield. And because we are, I'm recommending that we apply the anticipated surplus that we expect to have at the end of this year towards education spending. That was about $161,000. We're able to keep the residential equalized tax rate stable, which is great that you can show them that even with that drop in the property yield. And then we're increasing by 2 cents because last year's Act 46 incentive was a 4-cent decrease. And this year it's only a 2-cent decrease. We're in our last year of Act 46 incentive. So we are still going to show a 2-cent increase in adjusted equalized tax rate, all other things being equal. So of course the property yield is not finalized yet, and the legislature won't vote on that most likely till the spring. And then we're still waiting on that final equalized pupils numbers. Most likely this is what we're going to see when we go to print. So going down the bottom of the page, breaking that down by town, Paulet and Rupert, we have that final piece, the common level of appraisal. And these are the final numbers that we got from the state. And so we have the final projected tax rate for Paulet going up by 2.5 cents and for Rupert going down by 3.7 cents. And Rupert's going down because their CLA went up from last year. So that's it in a nutshell. Questions?
We had a target at one point for like classroom sizes. It was a range, I know, and I think there was 2 ranges for the younger grades and the upper grades. How are we doing working towards those targets?
We are definitely working toward them. The reduction of the classroom position is one of the steps to continue to do so. The same with last year. So both of those shifts, I'm just going to pull up exactly where we are at this point. Yeah, they're increasing. You still have some small classes, but we're making some headway on it. You've got some pretty significant fluctuation. And so that's part of what Mettawee School has to grapple with. And, Brooke works hard to move staff and adjust, which is why there's more mobility for teachers at different grade levels than there probably was before. But trying to shift and adjust based on where those bubble sizes go. You've got, class sizes of 18 and class sizes of 9 and 10 and 17. So you're really disparate, but this, I think this position continues to move you in that direction of getting larger class sizes.
it seems like we're getting there naturally with just people leaving rather than having to make cuts.
That's right. We're trying to use attrition
Right.
wherever possible.
So we're still, I mean, we're on a good pace, like it looks like still.
I think so.
I pulled out my budget paperwork from like 2 years ago, and it was such a different number for our students, like 30 more students then.
Right. I mean, there's definitely a decrease. That one of the biggest factors is what's going to happen next year.
Yeah.
So, you don't want to gouge too deeply when you're in such instability as we are right now. So, could you cut another person and reduce another position? Probably. But with all the uncertainty about how many home study students may return, it isn't something that I'd advise right now in this year. I think if those students continue to stay, we would have to look at that. If the pattern continued next year, we would be talking about that.
Another thing I want to mention is that right now, based on the requirements, we are not accepting all preschoolers. We have a waiting list. Our numbers are small, but we anticipate if we're able to have more children join us next year, we would be able to. But we're limiting the numbers based on space and making sure we're keeping everyone safe. So I think our pre-K numbers have reduced from last year to this year, but we're only accepting so many students. And we went from a lot of grade levels to having 2 teachers to majority of the classrooms only having 1. So we did last year combined 2 different grade levels to 1 class. And those are our biggest classes. So.
The tuition rate is not looking good for people when they look at that.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I mean, it's not keep in mind that the tuition rate is something that is set for when students attend. It's announced. It's not something that anybody has to vote on because it's just a calculation, and it's really due to that decline in students, right? Even with cuts, we can only do so much when you're operating a building and the numbers go down that much. There's only so much we can do.
Yeah, and it's not on the warning, right?
No, it's not. It's not part of the budget either. This is something that by statute you guys have to vote, so you can set it for me, and then I report it to the state, and then we use it when kids come, and that's pretty much all it is. I mean, it is a public number, and it is kind of scary. It gets big this year, but it's not, like I said, it's not something that's voted on or anything.
Right. It's just hard for. I'm seeing it and thinking like people outside looking in, that's going to be a hard number, but it's not like it's listed on the warning when they go to vote. So that sort of softens the blow, but it is a public number.
It is. And I think too, if you were to go and I could bring this to you next time if you wanted, you can go and look yourself as well. If you were to look up on the agency website, the Vermont Agency of Ed website, and you were to do a search on announced tuition, you would find all the reports that list the announced tuition for schools across the state. And we're not alone in that high number, for the same reason, right? We have a lot of small schools with, not large enrollments. So that's what's going to happen, because you're supporting, not just the instruction, but it's the entire building, right? It's everything that goes into the administration and the building maintenance. It's everything that goes into making sure we can provide an education to those kids. The only thing that's left out of that calculation is transportation and special education. So it's everything that goes into that. And there's a lot of different numbers that represent cost per student, right? There's the education spending for equalized pupils, and there's announced tuition, and then the state does another public cost announcement in October that has something to do with teaching salaries. And so there's a lot of different numbers that the state floats around. This one is just used for what do we bill when people come to our school.
I think that that one of the Rupert residents won't necessarily have to face this the way that Paulette will, but I feel like the mantra for me this year is that what's going to be confusing to people is that there are still many people who equate an increase in taxes to an increase in the school district budget, right? They sort of see those as tied very tightly when that's not the case at all. And so when you have those opportunities to explain that the budget is decreasing and it's decreasing by a significant amount, right? 3.4% is a lot, but that there are these other factors from the state, the yield and the CLA that, as well as that the Act 46 incentive that are all contributing. And you as a board, I mean, we have worked hard to get that budget to a reasonable place. But I think I'm expecting some level of confusion. So the more messaging you can do, the better. It's confusing to people.
Yeah.
Any more questions for Sue or me?
I don't see any.
Okay.
Okay. Are we ready to approve the budget? Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the budget.
Thank you, Scott. There's Corey, I saw your mouth move. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, Corey,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
I'm a yes as well. Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Sue, for all of that work. I love your explanations and your details. That's really helpful.
Cool. I'm glad.
She's worked incredibly hard. So I'm sure she is glad this is our last budget meeting.
Oh, you know that.
So the next agenda item is to approve the tuition rate. And so we did just talk about that, obviously for a couple of minutes, and we can certainly engage in further discussion if you'd like, but that's the next agenda item, approve it.
Okay, well, let's get a motion on the floor then. Corey,
I make a motion to approve the announced tuition.
thank you. Diane, is that your hand?
I'll go ahead. Let's discuss. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, any discussion?
So we're going to be able to explain this nicely.
Well, it's not part of the budget. So the only people that would ask about it, I mean, people might ask but it's intended for people who are not residents of Paulette and Rupert who want to send their students and pay tuition to the Mettawee Community School.
Yeah, it's published on the state website once we report it out.
So I did have a question sort of about that. So for ADM, are non-resident and non-state placed students counted in that number?
For ADM?
Yeah. Your explanation says something about resident students being counted and then something about state placed students are counted in a different way. So are tuition in students that are not state placed counted in the ADM and how?
No, they're not our kids because we don't pay for them. So they are not counted in ADM.
Okay.
They're counted in enrollment because they're attending our school, right? So we have all these different counts. They're counted in enrollment, but they wouldn't be part of ADM.
Okay. But they do go into that tuition number because that's an enrollment number.
Yes. So like when you're looking at Yes, when you're looking at the counts of students, and keep in mind that that number is obviously, it's a moving target, right? Like, so I don't know, Brooke, what's your latest estimate on incoming kindergarten for next year? Or do you have one?
We're at 16, so
Oh,
that
good.
is
So,
where we're at. But we had someone today enroll that will have a kindergartner, so we're at 17 as of today.
right. And we could have 3 more leave and then, we're down, right? So it's, the best guess of what we have now, and 1 or 2 students in either direction isn't going to throw that number too much. But yeah, I mean, it's down. And so that's what's causing our issue.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say again what I also just said, which is you're making one reduction for next year. You do have quite a few distance learners and you have quite a few home study students. And so I think that next year would be the year for us to look, if we're still continuing to look at numbers where they are right now, that we would be right sizing in a different way. But it feels like a gamble right now to assume that these numbers are stable at this point, and to reduce another position.
Yeah. I get that. It's just, I guess this is just one of those things where you just have to like plug your nose and go.
Yeah, and like Randy said, if hopefully we're going to see that number climb next year, and we'll be back to normal. I mean, the number's never been on the low side, right? That's what happens with a small school. Tuition, obviously, it's going to cost a little more, but it's just when it gets to that point, it's difficult to swallow.
Any further discussion? Okay. Scott?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
Yes as well. Okay, that's approved. Moving on. Next, we just have the warning.
Mm-hmm. So you will see what's different on this this year. I don't know if I haven't reviewed a warning with you. I don't know if you typically go through item by item or whether how you discuss it. Julie, I'll defer to you on. I've noticed boards take different approaches with this, but.
I think we just generally sort of look at, I don't think we go through item by item. I mean, the only thing that's really different is that we're having to vote on a meeting date and the elections. Everything else looks like it's
Right.
what it's always looked like.
So I'll walk you through it a little bit. So we are required, because you're moving everything to Australian ballot, you're required now to have an informational hearing this year. So that informational hearing is scheduled for February 24th. We're going to talk in the next agenda item about how we want to approach that. But that will be held via Zoom. The purpose of it is to give that opportunity to your taxpayers for you to share and review the budget and talk about any highlights you want to, give them a chance to ask questions, for you to respond before folks vote on March 2nd. Okay. So the only thing we're going to do on the 24th are those first 3 articles. We're not going to be having any votes at all. And then on March 2nd, everything that you see on Articles 4 through 9 will be included on the Australian ballot. And I think we've got everything updated here based on what we know. One of the things that I'm monitoring closely right now is there is legislation right now that is being drafted, and I think they're expecting it to be voted on by the House tomorrow and for it to move to the Senate after that. But part of that legislation will allow for a change of town meeting and school district elections. And so town select boards and school districts will have the opportunity potentially to move the date. I do not expect either of your communities to move their elections. So we would stick with the March 2nd date the way that we typically have, and just proceed with an Australian ballot the way that we will, that we've already talked about doing. The only other topic that might come up is whether or not to mail the ballots, or whether the towns will decide. That's also in the legislation, that towns would have the opportunity to, just like for the November election, everyone received a mail-in ballot. That same opportunity is being proposed to happen for this March election as well. And so towns will decide, and I believe you may need to as well, whether to mail those or not. Those costs, as proposed, would be fully reimbursable by the state. So the district would not absorb the costs of mailing. And I have a meeting on Wednesday with folks from VSBA and the Secretary of State's office, right? So that's the office, to get more details. But this is a moving target. But I just want to, as we look at this warning, as it is right here, I don't expect there to be any changes to it. Should we find ourselves in a situation that we need to schedule an emergency meeting or an additional meeting to talk about details, we'll do that.
So we usually vote from the floor for the moderator and the clerk and the treasurer. So I don't know if the people that are currently doing it are still interested. And do they know that they would have to get a consent for candidate foreman?
Yeah, Celeste reached out to all of them.
Okay.
Right, Celeste, you communicated with everybody?
I have, yes.
Yeah, so they're all aware.
And then the 3 board members are aware too, I assume, of when they have to have theirs in by.
Yes.
Yeah, if you have any questions, you can ask Celeste. She can help you with that process. For those of you whose positions are up, who are going to be running again?
Corey. Who else is up in Paula? There's 2.
I'm not sure.
Diane. So Corey and Diane, are you running again, Diane? No. You're muted.
No, she's not. No, you were good. We could hear you.
I'm not. No, thank you.
Okay. So we need to make that, I guess, publicly known so we can get somebody. I haven't seen anything come through, so I don't know who's running.
And
Okay.
a Rupert, right? The Rupert seat is up as well.
Yeah, that would be Michael, right?
I think it's Michael.
I think so too.
I thought Michael and I were just reelected pretty recently. Would it be him or, well?
Could be Arlene, because she and
Because
I,
Arlene wasn't, didn't
We're
she
just-
take someone's place, right?
yeah, she and I both just did.
So I wonder,
Celeste, do you know which seat is up?
Yeah, I'm looking right now. Hold on.
Thank you.
Corey, Diane, and I'm not sure.
Okay.
I can't tell from what I'm looking at on the internet, so I got another place I can look. Hold on.
While she's looking, if you
Yeah.
have any other questions about the warning, we could probably take a vote on that.
Yeah, it's Arlene.
All right, okay. Any more discussion on the warning? Okay. So, we didn't even get motions. Can we get a motion? Sorry, did that little switcheroonie.
I'll make a motion that we accept the warning.
Thank you, Diane.
Second,
Thank you, Corey. So, Diane,
Yes,
Scott,
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm a yes as well. Okay, we've moved through all of our action items.
Okay. So the next item is just a discussion about the informational hearing. You're going to be meeting in the same platform, so it will be an opportunity for you as a board to share information with your community and to answer their questions. I said that earlier. So, it may make sense for you to do a presentation, and you can think about whether you want to assemble it, you want to work with Sue and me to put it together, whether you want to kind of run it yourself or whether you want us to run it. We can be there to answer any questions, but you can present the budget and you can present the tax rate and the basic information to your folks. There's a number of different ways you can approach this, but I wanted to give you a little bit of time to talk through what feels like the approach that will be best for you so that we're prepared to support you and engage in the work however you'd like us to.
Okay. I think my initial thoughts on that would be to have a presentation, working with, I guess I would work with Sue on putting together the highlights. She generally did it here with her, one of these pages. Like the frequently used terms, and I always like the page where we go through how tax rates are calculated, because it's just I feel like it's just one of those things that's so hard to understand that the more often we say it, the better off our community is for it. And then I don't know, I mean, we're essentially like, how are we getting comments and questions from our community? Are people just going to be on Zoom raising their hand, or are they going to be sending things ahead of time? Or both?
They'll just be on the meeting.
Okay.
So we can structure it, Julie, you and I can work to structure the details of it, and we can present that at the beginning of the meeting. You're going to make a presentation, you're going to share information, and then probably the easiest thing is for us to have the chat and have people type their name in the chat, and then, I or somebody else can call on those folks who've typed their names that have a question. And it would be a time for discussion. The purpose of it is to share information with your community and answer any and all questions that people have to help them make an informed vote.
Okay.
I want to make sure I'm not missing something. It seems like on this budget, this is one of the, should be an easier one to pass than, Rupert's tax rate's gone down and ours is going up a very small amount. And the reason for that is really completely stuff that's on a state level that's out of our hands. So isn't that accurate, or am I missing something?
Nope, that's accurate. It should not be difficult.
This is one of the easier ones we've had, I think, isn't it? It's obviously a very serious topic, and even going up 2 cents is serious, but all the things we have control over have really been reduced. This number, there are fewer students, probably a lot of that, or certainly some of that has to do with COVID. So that makes your cost per pupil go up. So that number, I really think, is fairly, that can be explained. If you have fewer students, it's a more cost per student. I don't know, just going over it, it seems like.
But I think even that, your per pupil, your ed spending per equalized pupil has still dropped. So the tuition is up, but when we're talking about tax rate, your education spending per equalized pupil is still down. So your budget's down, as is your spending per pupil. So you're right. It shouldn't be tough. But you want to be prepared. I think I would keep it as simple as you can, and make sure that you're focusing on those key pieces of information that are going to be important to your voters.
And I think there's
yeah,
quite a list of positives to point out,
there are.
that we've achieved. So
There are many positives. I'll say that the town of Win Hall has done an informational session for the last 2 years and so it's been interesting because they've just decided to do that. They wanted to explain things to their voters, and it's been very positively received. They've done a PowerPoint and they've included, not a ton of slides, but the information that's relevant and important. And the conversations have been very positive and just informative. And I always left feeling really good about the conversation. So I'm kind of excited about this opportunity. I think it's a nice opportunity for you as a board to talk, not when you're, sitting in front of a group and you've got an audience and you won't have some of that formality here, which I think will be nice for you.
Would a PowerPoint be available for access at any point after the meeting?
Yes. Yep. So we would
Yeah.
post it on the SU site. And we'd make it available for anybody.
given the challenges with COVID and not being able to do that live meeting with questions and answers, I mean, there's probably a lot of people that don't know how to get onto a Zoom meeting and stuff. So I'm kind of concerned about that. I mean, is it something that we should do a press release or some kind of a mailing that just kind of gives a simple breakdown of what's been achieved and what the positives are, and, you know, kind of breaking it down in a more simplified fashion over and above what we normally do, since we're not having able to have an actual live meeting?
So we've been doing that for the last couple of years, right? When we merged and you became Mettawee School District, that annual report that we produce sort of includes all of those things. We do the FAQs that Bob is a big part of putting those together to try to, you know, take that public lens. Is how is the public going to be able to best understand what we're trying to convey? And certainly anything else that you guys think of that you want us to include in the annual report, we can. But we will go through, Randy and Bob and I, over the next couple of weeks and go through what should be included in the annual report. What points do we want to hit home? What numbers do we want to share? Like, as Julie said, you know, explaining how the tax rate works. All of those, you know, frequently used terms that people hear only once a year and they forget what it means, you know, all that kind of stuff, along with, of course, the budget, the enrollment, superintendent's report, all that stuff will go in there. So, you know, if you think about the past reports and you think about anything that is important to you that we might have missed that you'd like us to include, then let us know.
Okay.
Thank you.
But are you talking about just like a simple instructional thing about Zoom, how to get on Zoom?
That's a good idea. That's probably not a bad idea to do a little page on Zoom and how to get on, and here's the link. And yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Have that included with the mailing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be good.
And Celeste, if I remember correctly, we actually mail Mettawee's full report out to everybody, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I think
Very
that's
good idea.
Include like the very, very front, you know, to how to log in and get on.
Bob?
To Scott's point, when that annual report gets mailed, we could send out a press release alerting the public that look for your, you know, in the mail this week, you know, be on the lookout for the annual report that explains the tax, you know, budget that you'll be voting on. So that's a possibility too.
Okay, great.
And is there, I mean, can we put so there's going to be people that aren't going to get on Zoom.
Yeah.
So is there a mechanism where they could like call in a question that they have and then we could respond to them outside of this meeting?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So let's think about that. We can talk about the logistics. People are able to call in. So, so we might want to, you know, if we use sort of the chat function to organize questions that come for people who are in person in person attending. We could also open it up for callers, you know, and do our best to navigate that and hope that they don't, you know, we may have to say, okay, we're, you know, if a couple people are sort of jumping, we might need to say, oh, the person with 9354 at the end, we're going to start with you, and then we'll move to 7643, right? Like, so it might be a little bit challenging to navigate, but I'm confident it won't be. I don't think you're going to have an onslaught of callers.
I don't think so either.
No, but the other thing is that people could mail or email or whatever questions in ahead of time too.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, it's just different because we're not meeting live where people can just raise their hand and stand up and ask a question. And a lot of people don't have that technological know-how, but so I just want to make sure if they have questions that they have the ability to ask them. So
Yeah, I wonder, Randy, if like should those questions go to the board members so the board members can then bring them up at the meeting, or should those questions go to, say, one email address that we create for budget questions that we can print in the annual report, and that can be, you know, monitored by one of us so that we can then bring those questions to the meeting and publicly answer them?
I think it's all of this, right? I think I think, Scott, you're bringing up a good point about we want to make sure that we are as inclusive as possible. And so, you know, whether questions go to a Mettawee email address, or they go to Celeste, or they go to Julie. And, you know, I think the bottom line is we want to make sure everything is addressed. So doing it in writing, I think, is fine, but this is their informational hearing. So you want it to, the point is that these are all addressed during the hearing as well.
Right.
So these are great. I've written down all of these ideas. And so we can incorporate that into the plan of how we communicate out to folks.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So one of my thoughts is that, you know, if possible, we can shoot, your next meeting is on February 8th, and that's going to be your last meeting before this hearing. So, so we can try to have a draft of kind of a skeleton of a presentation for that meeting, Julie, that we can share with board. So that could be a future agenda item, but that would be part of what we do at the meeting, is to review that and talk about what we'd want to add or adjust or tweak prior to the meeting. Okay, does that sound reasonable to people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay, so that's all I have on that, unless anybody has anything else they'd like to talk about related to that.
I think I'm all set, if everyone else is all set.
Okay.
Okay.
So then the next, you know, that we had a distribution of my report and Brooks. And so I wanted to give you an opportunity, if you had any questions or comments about that you could do so now. And then we'll move on to the next item. Good.
Not seeing any questions, so I'm ready to move to community engagement. Thank you, Randy.
You are welcome.
Thank you, Bob, for putting this together for us. Did everyone have an opportunity to look at the Word document that Bob emailed out?
When did he mail it out? Because I think I missed it.
Oh, did you? Okay.
I didn't get one, I don't think.
Oh, was that just to me, maybe? Sorry.
You're muted, Bob.
So Bob took notes diligently from the last meeting that I wasn't really there for, and put together, he just kind of worded what we had discussed over time and boiled it down to 3 questions. And so I'll just read you what he has, and then we can wordsmith it from there. Number 1, the Mettawee Community School educates the children of Paula and Rupert from pre-kindergarten through 6th grade. From the following list, please rank no more than 5 skills or values you believe our graduates should master before they leave to attend secondary school. Use a numerical scale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with 1 as the most important. Community pride, love of learning, respect for nature, math fundamentals, reading, writing fundamentals, problem solving, ability to identify problems and create solutions, critical thinking, judgment based on facts, empathy, understanding the feelings of others, computer fundamentals, verbal communication skills, kindness, good citizenship, and that was that.
That seems like a lot.
So there's 12 items and and so the wording would be to select 5 of them and then rank them. So we had discussed kind of taking 2 separate questions, one about skills and one about values, and putting them together. So I kind of see what you mean, but you know.
Diane, you think if it's too long and too wordy, people may not bother doing it?
Oh, I think it's hard I think they're very diversified. I mean, first I'd want to see them because I'm not,
It's hard to do it, yeah.
yeah, but I felt like, how can you not, I don't know, was there something on there about the environment outside?
Yeah, there was respect for nature.
Versus, somebody's ability to think in a certain way. And I'm like, oh man, I just don't know if how do I rank them? I would find it difficult to come up with only 5. I would be able to rank my 5 as important, but I wasn't sure about, I think it would be really hard for me to narrow that down to 5. So is there any way I give more feedback or?
Do you mean like just having a notes or a comments as well as ranking?
So I had an idea of just having like an other there.
And having somebody be able to add one.
Yeah.
I like that type of an idea where at least gives them a little leeway where they can, if there's something that they want to say that they feel is important, they have that space to do that. Because otherwise we're trying to capture everything and it gets too wordy and long and,
I tried just sharing this with you. I don't know if it's just going to be like in your Google Docs or if it will come through as an email, but I apologize. I would have sent this on to everybody. I just didn't realize that it hadn't been sent to everybody.
So let's hear the other 2 things that he has down there, right? And
okay.
then
The other 2 questions were, number 2 is, do you believe that every Mettawee student who ultimately graduates from high school should be prepared to attend a 4-year college, community college, or trade school? And that's just yes or no. I know, that one kind of, I don't know. I mean, I had a vision of what I wanted people to think about, maybe more than get an answer for, I guess, was like, is the point of education to attempt to prepare every child for something beyond a high school level diploma. And if it's not to prepare every child for that, then where does it go, right? Like that's kind of like the seed that I wanted to plant there. I don't know that getting an answer to that question, getting a yes or no answer to that question is going to do anything.
Right. Does that inform your work? I mean, I
don't think it does.
I think that you as a board, the purpose of this, right, is to be collecting information from your community so that you are able to use that to inform your work. I'm not sure what you would do if you found out that, you know, a lot of people said no.
I would have to explain in detail what they meant from that, because it wouldn't give us any information.
Right.
So is there a way we could word that question differently? Like something like, do
you want me to share my screen so that people can see this? Does everybody have it in front of them right now or not?
No.
Do you want me to share my screen?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the first question. I'll give folks, can you see it enough to read?
Mm-hmm.
And that was the second one that Julie just talked about. And then this is the third one that's on there. And then you've got a list here. Julie, what is it that you were thinking of what information are you trying to elicit by the second question?
So, I mean, for the second question, it's like, is there a way? And again, so I'm not an educator, right? I just think of my job as a board member to be forward thinking and kind of figure out what our community is going to be needing and wanting in the future, and then you guys make it happen. So my thought is like, is there, and maybe we're already doing work on this and it doesn't matter and it's a moot point and we can get rid of it, but are we tailoring an education to kids that are going to be just fine anyways because they're probably on the fast track to college? Or do we need to do work on expanding the way we teach kids so that we're taking into account the children that are going to have a completely different path but we still want them to be successful, right? So there are kids that are going to leave high school and go into the military. And then from there, maybe they do go to college or they go to a trade school, or they simply have enough life skills from that they find a job. Are there kids that are just going to leave high school and just get a job day one, whatever it is? Are we doing enough in the way we educate to do right by those kids too?
So I would say it's an interesting question because you operate a pre-K through 6th grade school. and then you offer choice for grades 7 through 12. You allow the opportunity for kids to find the path that works for them, right? They can attend an independent school that's large or small, or a public school that's in New York or in Vermont. They can attend a technical center if they want. They have opportunities in order to find the path that's right for them for, you know, the second half of their educational experience. So, you know,
Right,
I
but
think it's an interesting perspective, because as you're thinking about pre-K through 6 and the opportunities that you have some level of kind of oversight over, it's like, what do you need there in order to prepare you for kids having that opportunity, knowing maybe what they want to do or finding the path that's right for them? I don't know if that makes sense or not to people, but it's a little bit of a different lens on this topic.
I wonder on the number 2, instead of it being a yes or no question, if it should be, you know, what do you want our students to be prepared for, and then having, you know, graduating and, you know, attending a 4-year college, attending trade school, being equipped to go into the workforce immediately, going into the military, and like we did on the other one, have that a graded scale, like which is most important to you. So we get an idea of, you know, our population and what they see as the most important things to be prepared for. So not a yes or no, but what do you want us to be preparing them for? You know, maybe that should be the scope of this question. Kind of like we did on the other question. I mean, the first question is saying, what are the skills, or what do you want them to learn? The second question is, what do you want them to learn these skills for? What do you want to see them equipped for what? I don't know. That's the way I'm kind of reading into it. I mean, well, you say that down here. I guess, what do you want students to be prepared for when they graduate school?
I just added that.
Oh, okay.
I just put down exactly what you just said. So I just added that so we didn't lose it.
Kind of a similar idea, but it's giving them the opportunity to kind of express what areas are, you know, be interesting to see what that comes back as, you know. Or is the majority of the community kind of looking at college? Are they being prepared for the workforce and having those skills? I don't know if that would be more valuable.
So how would we use that information?
Yeah.
We're gonna.
What if it skews in a way that's completely different than what we have been doing and what the students want?
Mm-hmm.
Because they should have a voice as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Just thinking out loud, like.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure that out. Is how would we use what they say? Would we go in a different direction if it comes back? I don't know, something unexpected.
If the majority, yes, we want a 4-year education, but there's still a segment of people who are choosing not to do that. It's our responsibility to deliver a well-rounded education to all of them. So,
right.
And maybe we get what we want for an answer with just the first question.
mm-hmm.
I was thinking we could split that first question up into the 2, like maybe like what is important to you, like these actual skills or values, and then rank them within each category.
Yeah.
So then it chunks it a little bit more.
So I might not be following. Like a question that is skills, a question that is values, each one of them being ranked, and then maybe a question that is of of these that you ranked in the above two questions, what is the most important to you? So we get all of the answers, right? Like having just the one question, we get a ranking of whether they find this skill or value more important than another skill or value, but we could find out what skills are valued, what values are valued, and then which of those combined is the most important. Values are valued,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Rolls
Exactly.
right off the tongue. I don't know.
I just can imagine somebody looking at this and saying, well, obviously I want students to learn how to read and write and know math, and just focus on those and not give any attention to respect for nature, love of learning, community pride, but we would be interested in hearing where those rank anyway.
Right. So maybe we could have a follow-up question then that would be of the skills and values you ranked above, which do you feel is the most important for producing well-rounded students or well-rounded community members? I mean, that's what our goal is.
Right.
We're not trying to educate children, we're trying to educate adults that become members of our community and society. I know that sounds stupid because we're in the business of educating kids, but like that's where we start. And then our goal should be having community members that are intelligent, thoughtful, kind.
I don't think that's good at all. It sounds, I mean, yeah.
I get that, right? I have to move it. I know it's in the wrong spot. I just.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of like that.
No, I'm putting it back. I'm just moving it.
No, I know. I kind of like that. And then we can get rid of we can make that number 2.
Okay, get rid of this whole thing entirely?
I think so. What do you guys think?
Yes. I would say get rid of that.
Lori and Scott, you're okay if I delete it? Okay. I always hesitate, you know, there's that one person like, wait, hold on. And then you just, thank goodness for Google Docs where I can undo whatever I mess up. But
Okay, so we would just break this number 1 into like 1 and 2, right? So we would have.
Yeah, I put separate out skills from values and have people rank.
So we'll have 2 others then, right? So we'll have skills and another, and we'll have values and another, and then same system.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like number 3. I don't know if there's anything anyone wanted to add.
Can you see this whole thing on your screen? Dan keeps getting close and I can't tell if it's just tiny.
It is not, but it's on my phone, so.
But let's see if we can blow it up a little bit for you. Is this any better?
Yep, it is actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that number 3. I mean, I think it's also does a little bit to educate how people can hear from this district. So it's
like, hey, we're here.
Right, exactly.
And then here's the list of who's providing us with feedback. Select all that apply.
Do you want to I guess we probably shouldn't put senior citizen. I'm just wondering about the demographics. You know, who's answering?
I think there's a retired on there, right?
Yeah, there is a retired.
It's at the, you can't see it on that part, but it's,
Oh, sorry, there it is.
Okay, I didn't see it. Okay. Okay. Mm.
Do you want me to have it created into a Google form that we can share with all of you to take a look at? And that can be one mechanism, as well as hard copies. And then we can also put this in the school district report, right? That's one of the things you wanted.
Yeah.
We just have to figure out what they're going to do with it if they take it out of the district report. You think they can leave it at the town offices for collection?
you know, Paula has a Dropbox, so if people leave stuff there, then we can get it. I can get it put together. So if we could put, like, we can put an address that they can mail it in, and then tell them they can also drop it at either of their town offices or follow this link online. Are we going to be able to have a link to an online survey? Okay.
Yep. And we can also have it dropped off at the school.
Okay.
When do you want to do this?
When do we want to?
Stop sharing, okay. When do you want to disseminate? I mean, I know we're going to get it in the town report, but I'm thinking about sort of a collection period of time. I guess I'm not great with the dates, but if we shop for like that, Celeste, when would they all receive the school district report by?
They need it 10 days before the meeting. The question that I don't know, Randy, is what meeting do they need it 10 days before?
Right, we're trying to find that out.
Right.
I do think it's the second. I don't think it's the hearing. The hearing is informational in general. So if we plan on kind of expecting that collection to be the 22nd through, March 5th or March 12th, you just need an endpoint by which you can start to go through everything.
Yeah. Just trying to think if there were other community events coming up that we could try to get this out another way, but I can't think of it. I mean, there's nothing happening. No one's going anywhere. No one's doing anything. But this doesn't have to be the only data collection that we do either. So if we call it for like the end of March or the middle of March or something like that, then that would be fine.
And we can have it sent out to all of our families, both at the Mettawee Community School as well as your secondary students. So all of our families can get it electronically.
Okay.
And then if you know of other electronic dissemination groups in Paulette and Rupert, just try to get the link out. We can put it in the school website too. And then what we can do is limit that to only one response per email address. I'm sure there are a lot of people who want to say a whole lot of things, but we'll give them one shot.
Yeah.
I don't expect that to be abused. I guess that's sort of my point. I don't think this is the kind of thing people would just continue to resubmit.
That period of time, we can put it in the weekly messenger and on our Facebook page as well.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you guys think? Like March 15th or some Friday thereabouts, like March 19th?
Out. When's it going to go out?
So it's going to go out. It will be in people's hands for the meeting, for the town meeting day. at least 10 days before that.
Mhm.
So 10 days before the 2nd or 4th or whatever, the
Yes.
2nd. And our meeting is on the 24th. I just don't want the window to be too big because then people may not do it. Do you know what I mean? So I don't want it to go out either too early or have our endpoint be too late. Because I think it's interesting. So,
I think 3 weeks is probably reasonable. That's what I would recommend you at least have as a starting point is 3 weeks from, we could just say February 22nd. People may get it before that, but for the sake of making decisions, you could consider the 22nd.
okay.
And you could go till March 12th. I don't know how that sounds, but just for a starting point.
Sounds fine to me.
I'm okay with that. How about you, Scott?
Yeah, I think at first my reaction was let's give it to the end of March, but then, yeah, you don't want it too long a period. So, I mean, we'll have most likely we'll have a meeting the beginning of April, right? So if we had them all collected during the month of March, whatever's going to come in, then we'll have them for like our April meeting, and we can decide, how we want to review them, like I mean, I wonder what we're going to get. Let's say we get 150 or 200 of them back. What's our plan? We're going to.
That's really the $1 million question.
Yeah. So we set this deadline, but then what? I guess I'm just trying to figure out kind of what the whole thing looks like, but maybe that's a longer answer than we want to completely figure it out.
Well, and I think maybe we'll see what we get
Yeah.
at our April meeting and then decide how we split up the task of.
Yeah, so we could put on there, to in by March 15th, but we're not meeting till the beginning of April. So at that point, we kind of evaluate what we have and then decide how we want to use it and review it and stuff.
Mhm.
Do we not have a March organizational meeting?
But that would be the beginning of March, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right. Okay.
And so we wouldn't have them in by then. That's what I'm saying. The beginning of April will be the first meeting we'll have where we would have, would have passed the deadline. Whether the deadline's March 12th or March 15th or whatever it might be, but that'll be our first meeting. And if they are coming in these various sources, some of them are coming via email, some are hard copy that are dropped off at different places. Trying to achieve that we have, everything kind of figured out, like how many we got back by that April meeting, how to organize that. I don't think that'll be too hard, but still, if there are different methods of receiving them, make sure we have them all.
Okay. So it sounds like we'll pick do you guys want to pick the 12th or the 15th?
Is it bad luck that that's the Ides of March? Do people get like...
Bad luck's supposed to be behind us now, Scott.
Yeah, that's the day my daughter's supposed to get her braces off, so I hope not, because
go with March 15th.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got March 15th, and then at that point we'll know we'll know what we're dealing with for how we want to split things up. The tasks of going through all of this, maybe we could be splitting that up at our April meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sounds good. Is everyone all good on this? Are we happy?
Yeah, are you gonna, someone's gonna kind of do a final wordsmith and look over that, I think we kind of got a pretty good feel, but we kind of, we're doing it quickly, so someone will proofread it, I guess. And
Yeah, so Julie and I can work with Bob. We'll make sure it gets in a good format. for what we want to put into the report. We'll send that to you for review. And I will create a Google form and I'll add you all in as collaborators so you can see that. Actually, I'll just share it with all of you once I think it's done. You can give feedback on what we want to change, but they should be the same.
Good.
So you can give us feedback. We'll probably get that done. It'll be done within the next week.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, is everyone all set with this community engagement piece? Okay. Any board updates? Okay. So our next meeting is February 8th, 6:30. The wonderful world of Zoom. And we'll be doing that draft presentation, so that'll be a good one. And then we have a couple minutes for board self-evaluation. So level of engagement of all board members.
The ones present or not? How does that work?
Well, I guess we can give very poor grade to
Be facetious, I guess.
For Rupert.
Yeah, Rupert.
But I think everyone participated a lot, and as always, I think it was very good that it was present.
Yeah, it is a little sad to have, because we have a small enough board anyways, but it's kind of, it does sort of feel like we're missing
Our other half.
Yeah.
Do we know what happened? I mean, do we know? No.
Phyllis, did you hear from Michael or Arlene?
No, I didn't.
Well, it's fine. We can't expect everyone to have perfect attendance all the time, but it's kind of endearing though to think of like we're missing some other voices that we appreciate. So I do think that speaks well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the agenda followed. I believe we did a good job. We tried to keep it a pretty tight agenda for this meeting because we knew we had plenty of stuff coming up in February. Were we linked to the board work plan? Oh, we keep not having the work plan in the agenda packet.
We have had it, and then I just did not put it in this one time.
Oh, okay.
So it has been there, but I did not put it in this time.
Okay. Community engagement. Do we feel like we spent a significant amount of time on that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Absolutely.
Ends discussions and executive limitations. I mean, I think we'll get there.
Yeah, I don't think it's where we're at.
Right. The consent agenda was used appropriately, in my opinion. Does anyone have any thing that they would like to say that went well or concerns or improvements that we could make?
Once again, I just thought that, in discussing about that community outreach letter, I just love the way we all work together as a board. I just always appreciate it. Everyone's input.
I agree.
I agree too. We do work well together, and I think we appreciate each other's voices, which helps.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Public comment?
There's none on YouTube.
Okay.
By the way, I ran into someone in Max, and they were watching our meeting the last time on YouTube. So there are some people out there apparently that are watching us. I have to say I was shocked, but happy.
Cool.
Well, that's good. It's good.
Yeah,
We all
Yeah.
be
Maybe.
internet famous together.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I assume the two people on here have nothing that they would like to add. And so I would entertain a motion to adjourn, or not just adjourn us. Hey,
Okay, yeah.
okay, is everyone okay?
Yep.